I wanted to divorce my cheating husband, but my mother-in-law threatened to use something against me that could take my kids away. I finally found the courage to leave my cheating husband. But just when I thought the hardest part was over, my mother-in-law stepped in with a threat that shook me to my core. She claimed to have something that could make me lose custody of my children forever. They say that when a woman forgives infidelity, a part of her dies. I used to think that was a bitter exaggeration, something people said in the throes of heartbreak, when anger clouded everything. But then I lived it, and I realized it wasn't just true, it was a quiet kind of death. A dimming, like a light inside me had gone out, and no matter what I did, it refused to come back on. I'm a mother. That identity runs deep in my bones. My days revolve around my 2 children, Noah, who's 8, and Lily, who just turned 5. From the moment they were born, I stepped into the role of caregiver without hesitation. I packed their lunches every morning, washed the tiny socks and shirts that never seemed to stay clean, helped with homework and book reports, soothed nightmares, and kissed bruised knees. I was their constant. Ethan, my husband, used to say he worked long hours to provide for us. He'd come home late, his tie crooked and his eyes tired. But over time, I noticed the smell of perfume clinging faintly to his shirt, an unfamiliar scent I didn't wear. I tried not to jump to conclusions. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But then I found the texts. It started as a gut feeling. A woman's voice wrapped in emojis and late-night messages, lingering on his phone like a secret he thought I'd never find. One number stood out, saved under the name Mike from work. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, but the messages told a different story. Loving, flirty, explicit. Mike wasn't Mike, and she wasn't the first. That's when I knew. I was done. When I told Ethan I wanted a divorce, he didn't argue. He didn't deny anything or apologize. He didn't even pretend to be sad. He just shrugged, like I'd told him we were out of milk. "If that's what you want," he said flatly. But I was not prepared for what came next. What truly blindsided me wasn't Ethan's indifference. It was how quickly his mother, Carol, inserted herself into the middle of our unraveling. Carol and I had never been close. From the beginning of our marriage, she looked at me like I was a problem Ethan would eventually fix. She criticized my parenting constantly, undermined every boundary I set, and inserted herself into decisions that weren't hers to make. Still, I tolerated it, for the sake of peace, for the sake of family. But now, with the divorce looming, she saw her chance. And she took it. The tension had been growing like a storm behind the walls, and I felt it building, pressing in on me with every passing day. One night, after I tucked the kids into bed and dimmed their night lights, I came into the living room. Ethan was on the couch, lounging as if life was perfectly normal. The TV was on full volume. His shoes were kicked off, feet up. He didn't even glance at me. "I spoke to the lawyer today," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The divorce papers will be ready next week." He didn't flinch, didn't pause the TV, just kept staring straight ahead. "Did you hear what I said?" I asked again, louder this time. "Yeah," he muttered. "You're really doing this?" "I am," I said firmly. "This marriage is over." Finally, he turned his head and looked at me. His face was unreadable. Cold. "You think you're just going to take the kids?" he said slowly. Just like that. My heart dropped. "I'm their mother, Ethan," I said, trying to stay calm. "I'm the one who's here. I'm the one who feeds them, bathes them, helps them with school. You barely even know their schedules." He gave a small, smug smirk. "We'll see what the court says." A chill ran through me. What's that supposed to mean? But he didn't answer. He turned back to the screen, like I'd already disappeared. Like this wasn't his life unraveling too. I stood there for a long time, just watching him. Watching the man I used to love, now a stranger with a familiar face. Something inside me shifted, hardened. I knew I had to protect myself, but more importantly, I had to protect Noah and Lily. I wasn't just walking away from a broken marriage. I was stepping into battle for my children's stability. Then came Friday morning. I was making breakfast when I got a message from Carol. She asked if she could come over and spend time with the kids that afternoon. My first instinct was to say no. Every part of me screamed that it was a bad idea. I didn't trust her, never had. And now, in the middle of this fragile transition, the last thing I needed was her judgment or manipulation. But I was exhausted. My head pounded. My chest felt like it had been carrying bricks for days. I was trying to keep things civil, trying to appear reasonable, especially with lawyers involved. So I said yes. Not because I trusted her, but because I was too tired to keep saying no. Less conflict usually meant fewer problems later. That was the only reason I agreed to let Carol visit. She promised she'd stay only an hour or two, and swore she just missed the kids. I hesitated before replying. My gut twisted in warning, but I was tired of fighting. The divorce process had already drained so much of my strength. I needed to pick my battles, and this didn't seem like the one to die on. I took a deep breath and wrote back, "Okay." She showed up that afternoon, right on time, like she was proud of being so punctual. Her smile stretched wide across her face, but there was no warmth behind it. I saw it right away. It was a forced smile, the kind someone wears when they're pretending. Still, she strolled into the house like she owned it, carrying a large, overstuffed tote bag slung over one arm. "I brought something sweet for the kids," she chirped, her voice overly cheerful, like she was hosting a cooking show. I gave her a long, flat look. "We don't do sweets during the week, Carol." She laughed and flicked her wrist in the air as if I'd just made a silly joke. "It's Friday," she said, breezing past me. "Let them live a little." There was something about the tone in her voice, casual, dismissive, that made my stomach twist. But I was in no mood for a fight, not with the kids watching and not after the week I'd had. I bit my tongue, turned away, and headed into the kitchen. The smell of onions and garlic filled the air as I stood at the counter, slicing carrots for dinner. The comforting rhythm of the knife helped distract me. I focused on the task, trying to keep calm. In the background, I could hear the kids talking and giggling with Carol in the living room. Just finished dinner. Just survived the visit. That's all I kept telling myself. Then I heard it, the unmistakable crinkle of foil, sharp and sudden. It cut through the kitchen noise like a siren. Seconds later, Lily's voice rang out with joy. "Yay, chocolate!" My heart dropped. I hadn't given her any chocolate. I wiped my hands on a towel and rushed toward the sound, already fearing the worst. In the living room, Lily was sitting cross-legged on the rug, her small hands clutching a half-unwrapped chocolate bar. Her fingers were sticky, her cheeks flushed with excitement. She looked up at me, beaming. "Lily!" I shouted, louder than I meant to. "What are you doing?" She blinked, startled, confused. "Grandma said it's okay." I darted forward and snatched the candy out of her hands. "No! You can't have this." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I just wanted a little bit. You never take food without asking me first." I snapped, voice still shaking. "You're 5. You don't get to decide." And that was it. She burst into tears, loud, gasping sobs that shook her tiny shoulders. Her whole body trembled, and her face crumpled in confusion and hurt. "You're so mean," she cried. I froze. My chest was tight, and my hands were shaking. Behind me, I heard Carol's voice from the doorway, low and smug. "All that over a piece of chocolate?" she said, arms crossed, phone held low at her side like she was recording or preparing to. I turned to her, my voice full of fury. "You gave this to her?" she asked nicely, Carol said with a shrug. "I didn't think. She's allergic to peanuts." I shouted, holding up the wrapper in my hand. My voice broke with panic. "There's peanut butter in this." She could have had a reaction. Carol's face went blank. "Oh my God," I breathed. I dropped to my knees beside Lily. "Baby, how much did you eat? Tell me now." "Just one bite," she sobbed. Without wasting a second, I scooped her into my arms and ran to the kitchen. My hands were trembling as I pulled open the cabinet above the sink where we kept the emergency kit. I grabbed the chewable antihistamines and crouched down to Lily's level, brushing her hair back from her damp face. "Sweetheart, chew this for me. Now, please." She nodded, sniffling, and popped the tablet into her mouth, still hiccuping between sobs. I grabbed my phone and called Dr. Medina, our pediatrician, using the after-hours line. My fingers felt clumsy and heavy, but I managed to explain everything. They told me what symptoms to watch for, and confirmed we'd done the right thing. From the doorway, Carol's voice floated in, cool and unfazed. "She looks fine now." I turned, rage boiling just beneath my skin. "She looks fine until her throat swells shut. You almost put her in the ER." "She didn't say anything about an allergy," she said again, defensive. "She didn't mention any allergy. She's 5. I screamed. "You're the adult. You knew. We've talked about this before. It's in her daycare file. Her school. Her medical records. You've heard me say it more than once. You knew, Carol. You just didn't care." There was no excuse. No explanation that could undo the danger she'd caused. My daughter had trusted her grandmother. I had tried to extend grace. Lily clung to me like a baby koala, her small arms wrapped tightly around my neck. Her breathing was shaky, uneven, and quick. I could feel the rise and fall of her tiny chest against mine. Her skin was warm and sticky with tears. I held her close, rubbing slow circles on her back, whispering whatever soft, soothing words came to mind. But inside, I was a storm. My heart was racing. I felt scared, angry, confused, all at once. Then I looked up. Carol was still standing by the doorway, watching. Too calm. Her face showed no emotion at all. Not worry. Not guilt. Nothing. But I noticed her hand. It was wrapped tightly around her phone. The way she gripped it made something stir inside me. Her fingers were clenched like the phone was something precious, like it was made of gold, and she didn't want to drop it. That's when something clicked. She had done this on purpose. She knew. She knew about Lily's allergy. She had been told, more than once, that Lily couldn't eat anything with peanuts in it. We were always careful, always checking labels, always asking questions. Carol had watched me go through this routine. She had even nodded, acting concerned, as I explained it all again and again. And yet, she had given Lily chocolate. Chocolate that clearly had peanuts. She knew. She had known. She had wanted a reaction. She wanted me to lose it. She wanted this moment. But why? That night, when the house was quiet and the kids were finally asleep, I got my answer. I was in the hallway, walking Carol to the door. I hadn't said much since the incident. I was still shaken. Lily had thrown up twice. Her lips had started to swell. I had grabbed the emergency meds and held her while the reaction slowly passed. We'd been lucky. No hospital this time. Just terror. Carol had stayed for a while afterward, acting calm, even helpful. But I didn't trust her anymore. Now, as she picked up her purse and turned to me, her face was still blank. Her voice came out low and even. "You have two options," she said. "Call off the divorce. Or walk away without your children." I froze. The words didn't even make sense at first. "What did you just say?" I asked. "You heard me," she said. "Stay with Ethan. Or give up the kids." My chest felt tight. I stared at her. "Your son cheated on me," I said, my voice rising slightly. "Not once. Not twice. More than that. I'm not staying with a man who lies to my face and sneaks around behind my back." Carol sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Children need both parents. A full home. That's what's best." "No," I said firmly. "What's best is safety. Love. Truth." She tilted her chin up, unbothered. "I stayed," she said. "My husband cheated too. I didn't leave. I endured. The kids were fine." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Right. And your son grew up just like his dad. Another cheater." Carol didn't blink. "That's normal for men." I stared at her. "Well, it's not normal for me. And I'm done. The papers are being filed. Nothing's changing." Without a word, she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "Then I'd like to show you something," she said. She tapped the screen a few times, then turned the phone toward me. It was a video. Me in the living room. My face was red, my voice sharp. I was shouting, "You don't ever take food without asking me first." Lily sat on the floor, crying. Her face was smeared with chocolate. I looked awful. Harsh. Unhinged. The camera angle made it worse, like something out of a courtroom drama. My voice cracked. "You filmed me." Carol shrugged. "All anyone will see is a mother yelling," she said calmly. "No context. No allergy. Just rage. And Ethan's lawyer will be very interested." My throat closed up. My blood ran cold. Even if I told the judge about Lily's allergy, even if I showed hospital records, test results, prescriptions, I couldn't prove that the chocolate had contained peanuts. I had thrown away the wrapper in a panic. There was no physical evidence. She had set this up. Carol wanted to paint me as unstable, as unfit. She wanted to take my children away from me. The next morning, I made a decision. I did what I had to do. After dropping the kids off at school, I drove straight to Carol's house. I told myself to stay calm. I told myself I needed to be smart, collected, ready. When she opened the door, she looked surprised to see me. I said I wanted to talk about the custody schedule. I said I wanted things to go more smoothly for everyone. She paused for a moment, then nodded and stepped aside to let me in. We sat in her living room. She offered me tea I didn't want. Her voice was soft and smooth, too sweet. The voice she always used when pretending everything was fine, when she was hiding something behind that careful face. I nodded along, pretending to listen to Carol as she talked. Her words floated around the room like background noise. I didn't hear most of what she said. I just kept nodding, keeping my face calm. Inside, I was alert, watching, waiting. I was looking for an opportunity. I didn't know what, exactly, I was hoping to find. But I knew there had to be something. Anything. Then it happened. Carol had left her phone unlocked and open on the counter when she walked into the kitchen to refill. Something in me told me to check it. Fast. I stood up and moved to the counter, trying to keep my hands from shaking. What I found nearly made my knees give out. It was a video. A screen recording, like the one she had shown me before. But this one had something more. Carol was facing the camera. Her eyes were lit with smug confidence, and she was smiling. Not a warm smile. Not a kind one. It was cold. Calculated. A smile meant to hurt. She leaned closer to the camera and whispered, "Let's see how crazy she gets when I give the little one something sweet." Then she smiled again, that cruel, knowing smile. My breath caught in my chest. My fingers were ice cold. My heart hammered so loudly I could barely think. But I knew what I had to do. I quickly sent the video to myself. My hands moved fast, my mind focused. Then I deleted the message thread, so she wouldn't see what I had done. I closed the gallery, locked the phone, and placed it back on the counter exactly as it had been. Then I sat back down and picked up my tea as if nothing had happened. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The video played over and over in my mind, like a terrible loop I couldn't escape. Her voice, her smile, that whisper. The whole thing was a trap. She had planned it. She had wanted Lily to eat the chocolate. She had wanted me to react. It wasn't about helping or visiting or spending time with her grandchildren. It was about control, power, revenge. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I told him I needed to meet right away. He agreed. I sat across from him in his office, barely able to keep still. I handed him my phone and watched as he pressed play. He didn't say anything while the video played. He just sat back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes focused. When it ended, he looked at me and nodded. "This is gold," he said. "You're going to win." 2 weeks later, we were in court. Ethan's lawyer stood up and played the video Carol had filmed, the edited version. It showed me in the living room, angry, loud, and upset. I was shouting at Lily. I looked out of control, even violent. Lily sat crying on the floor, chocolate smeared across her face. From the outside, it looked terrible. "She's unstable," the lawyer said to the judge. She screamed at the child. She snatched food from her hands. "This is not safe parenting." I sat still, my hands clenched in my lap. My lawyer stood and calmly walked to the front. "Your Honor," he said, "we have the full footage, including the part where the grandmother planned the incident on camera." The room went completely silent. The judge nodded, and the video began to play. Carol's face appeared on the screen. Her voice was clear. "Let's see how crazy she gets when I give the little one something sweet." Everyone watched in stunned silence. The judge played the video again. Then again. When it ended for the third time, the judge sat back, her eyes steady and serious. She looked at Ethan. "Your mother's behavior was manipulative and dangerous," she said. "The court awards full custody to the mother. The father will have supervised visitation only. The grandmother is prohibited from having unsupervised contact with the children." It was done. Just like that, outside the courtroom. Ethan kept his eyes on the floor. He didn't say a word. He didn't look at me. He looked smaller somehow, as if he had lost something he thought he could keep, something he believed was his no matter what. Carol stood near the door with her arms crossed tightly across her chest. Her face was stiff, her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't speak either. She just stared straight ahead. She looked like she couldn't believe what had just happened, like something had been stolen from her. But the truth was, she had done it to herself. I turned away from them both. Down the hallway, I saw my children waiting. Noah stood tall, trying to be brave, his small shoulders straight. Lily reached out her hand the moment she saw me. I walked toward them without a word and took their hands. One on each side. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. We walked out of the courthouse together. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. We were safe.